What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Rebound. We're going to be talking about the 5 best young cores in the East and the 5 best young cores in the West right now. Alright, let's start off with the East. I think, obviously, to me, I feel like there's no contest. Orlando, number 1, best young core, because their entire team is young. Besides for Terrence Ross, everyone on that team is 26 and under. Jonathan Isaac might be their oldest young player.
But they're bad.
I know they're bad, but, you got the point guard position is stacked. Markelle Fultz, Cole Anthony, even RJ Hampton. And then you got Jalen Suggs. They actually have so many young players. And then they got Wendell Carter Jr., who's really good. Mo Bamba, Jonathan Isaac, Franz Wagner. And then they just drafted Paolo Banchero. I feel like even though they're bad, they have the most young bad players.
See, I understand what you mean, but I feel like if in order for a team to have a good young core, they have to be a good young core. So in my mind, there is no debate that it's Cleveland.
I'm so stupid.
I know you're stupid. You got almost the rookie of the year.
Yeah.
The best defender in that rookie class in Evan Mobley.
No doubt.
The most versatile defender
on
the team. No doubt.
And then the team chemistry with the young players just went up because they just drafted Isaiah Mobley. Imagine your all-star Jared Allen comes out of the court and then your brother comes in. And he's long, he's lengthy, and he can play defense just like his brother. He can shoot that pill. He's just like Evan, but he's a bit raw.
I definitely agree with that. See, you also have in Cleveland is just Evan Mobley. It's just such a good balance of defense and offense because Evan Mobley, he averaged around 15 points per game, I believe, and he also, it was one of those commercials that shows up all the time when you watch NBA games about
his defensive impact. Contested the most amount of shots in the rookie class by a mile. He was top 10 in contests this year.
And it was top 10 in the entire league. To do that as a rookie, on a team where you already have Jared Allen, is pretty impressive.
Him contesting top 10 means he was out there on the perimeter. Jared Allen was down low. He was out on the perimeter. Then he got in the paint. He was in the mid-range. He was everywhere. And the best thing about the Cavs is positions and everything. It's not just Evan and Isaiah. Point guards, you got Darius. You got Colin Sexton. They got RJ Nembhard. Then they got Okoro at the 2. Jetty, he's 25-ish. That's still relatively young in NBA terms. Lamar Stevens is pretty young.
The way that they get out in transition, similar to the Bulls.
No question.
They remind me of literally just an younger Bulls team sometimes with how fast their game is because you have Evan Mobley contesting a shot, gets the rebound right away, throws it all the way down to Sexton, although we didn't really get to see him with Evan Mobley this year.
Yeah.
Sexton, Garland, Okoro, any of those good finishers on that team that know how to make a play at the end of the floor.
And then they also drafted, he plays the 2 or the 3. I don't want to butcher his name, but Okai Ajivi or whatever. OCH.
I have no clue.
They just drafted him. He looked really good. I don't know. I was a fan of him coming out. But then I think number 2, I think even though Atlanta doesn't have that many young players, their young players are so much better. Trae Young alone, John Collins, DeAndre Hunter, even DeJounte Murray is 25.
Mm-hmm.
So they got a deep young core. They were so good. They had to trade away. They traded away Kevin Huerter.
Oh, I forgot.
But still, Trae Young, John Collins, DeJounte Murray. DeJounte Murray All-Star, Trae Young All-NBA. John Collins averaged 20 and 10 the last 2 years. DeAndre Hunter is a premier defender. 6'10". What can he do?
Nothing.
So what's your 2?
I'm going to say Cleveland and really want to say, I think I'll say Orlando actually. I would put Orlando up there, just not the first.
Yeah.
But you're right, just because of the amount of young players that they have, what's the possibility that they're all bad?
Yeah.
We already saw a little bit with Paolo in the summer league when he did show out. And again, we know it's just a summer league, but there's definitely flashes of a great player in him, despite his obvious physical disadvantages, like sweating 1,000,000 pounds off of him per game. And but that's not going to stop him from being a great player in my eyes. And I think that Orlando still does have that great young core that can get them borderline to the play-in at least.
I think there are two more underrated ones, and then one obvious one that we missed. I think the underrated is Washington. Denya Villa, he was really good defensively this season, and he's 6'10", but he plays guard most of the time. And he passes the ball really well, and he defends supremely well. And then Roy Hachimura is just coming back.
Kuzma too.
Kuzma. Then you got Vernon Carey, who didn't get that many minutes, but when he got his minutes on the Hornets, I know he was pretty good. And then you got Johnny Davis, who they just drafted, who was a star in college, obviously. He didn't show out that well in Summer League, but there's still hope for someone you picked high in the lottery. And then another one that we kind of skipped over was New York. They had their whole team out there in Summer League.
That's true.
That was just their whole roster.
That's
Jericho
true.
Sims, RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin, Quentin Grimes.
I mean, you got Toronto in there too.
Toronto. Yeah.
I can't really think of anyone except for Scotty Barnes that's really young. That's been on the
OG
team. OG is also
young.
an amazing defender.
Scotty's young. Gary Trent Jr. is only 21.
He looks like he's
He looks
3,000 years old. But
he's so
only 21.
old. He's not. He's only 21, and he's really good. He dropped like a 40 piece last year. I remember he got that 2K moments card.
Right.
And then
Right.
underrated that we missed. Not underrated. Detroit.
Underrated young core.
I don't think they're underrated. I think we just missed them.
Yeah.
Kate Cunningham,
Sadiq.
Saban Lee, Jalen Duran. They're a good team with young players. Even Bagley. I know we talked about Bagley last episode, but Bagley is severely underrated just because he didn't get minutes. When he got minutes with the Pistons his last couple games, he scores. When he got his minutes with the Kings, he was scoring. It's what he does. It's why he was drafted so high, and I feel like people forget.
Right. I feel like you can't really call out teams like Indiana who their best player is a young player and Tyrese Halliburton, because that's really it. You can't
That's all they have.
you can't name anything else because they got nothing else going on, really, if you think about it.
Yeah, and then I think if we were saying the worst young core, probably have to go with Brooklyn. Brooklyn's got Nick Claxton, who they didn't even want to give a contract to, but they gave it. Day'Ron Sharp gets no minutes. Ben Simmons is 26.
You could also argue that Philadelphia has a really great young core because not only do they have great young players like Tyrese Maxey, Matisse Thybulle, they have great players that are, there to mentor them. Like James Harden, when he first got traded to the Sixers, there were plenty of videos of him teaching some of the youngsters that were on that team, specifically Tyrese Maxey. And I think that after he got traded, you could see a lot of flashes of Harden's game in Tyrese Maxey's play style, which I think says what impact such great players can have on them.
I feel like when he got there, he was scoring a lot. When Harden wasn't there, he got there, and he copied his unselfish tendency of his passing more. Yeah. And then their players are built around Joel, and Joel's still even young, if we want to call him that, like 26.
He's not 30, so
yeah.
Most of the superstars in the NBA are 30 or older. He's probably the youngest superstar.
Yeah. And we even saw Paul Reed, who's whenever he gets minutes, he brings energy. He's a young guy. He probably won't get this many minutes, but
Doc Rivers hates him.
He hates him. Fired up.
Not a fan.
All right. So
shifting focus to the West. I think without a doubt, I don't think you can argue anything other than Memphis for number one for the best young core.
Their whole team is young.
I said before that Embiid is the youngest superstar in the league, completely forgetting about Ja, borderline being a superstar. He hasn't really reached that level yet, but I only think it's a matter of time before he either injures himself and ruins his career because he plays like Derrick Rose, or before he,
takes that
changes
leap.
his game up, takes that leap, instead of into a hospital bed, into a superstar status that will put him into an all-star uniform.
I agree. He'll either become a superstar generational talent or out of the league in 2 years. There's no in-between for Ja Morant, it seems.
Yeah.
But yeah, Memphis, their entire team, even though they trade away D'Anthony Melton to the Sixers, which I don't understand, traded for Danny Green.
Oh, yeah.
And Danny Green's hurt. I don't see the point in that.
I forgot he tore his ACL.
Why did you do that? They knew that already. And that whole team is young. Even Steven Adams, he seems like he's a lot older than he is. He's not 30. He's like 27, 28. He's an older young player, still, but he's there to mentor people like Jaren, who was so good, top 3 in MVP voting throughout the season.
Deep boy voting.
Yeah, deep boy voting.
Deep boy voting. But I think for the second one, I think you literally you have to say OKC. Just because of the amount of draft picks that they have in the future, which will count as a part of a young core because of the future that they can build off of just that, and also because you have players like Giddey, Chet Holmgren, Lou Dort,
Shea.
I forgot about Shea.
They got 2 Jalen Williams.
Poku,
Shevsky. They got everything out there.
Yeah,
they got every position. Even their veterans. They have Kenrich Williams, who was so good the last 2 seasons. He's not gonna pop out on the stat sheet, but he plays great defense and he shoots the ball well. And he's like 26. I don't know why he's stuck on that team. He's so good, but he is young and he's growing with those guys.
But what do you think the biggest weakness for that team is? Because for me, when I look at them on paper, I see barely any defense besides Lou Dort.
Yeah, I see Lou Dort, and I say he can't do it all by himself.
Exactly, because he's 6'3", 6'4", trying to play the 3,
yeah,
competing against people like LeBron and KD.
And he does a good job, but he can't. If they got into a playoff series, they'll find a way to shut him out. They'll put him in a pick and switch.
Well, you could say that, but then in important games, he did show out. Like, remember
Harden.
In the bubble?
Yeah.
Against Harden. Again, that was different circumstances because Harden's kind of a player that Lou Dort is kind of, I don't want to say built to defend.
Yeah,
but
he's a stocky, short defender to go at those guys.
Because he can, when someone would drive on him, he wouldn't just give way.
Yeah.
He's a strong guy who can, hold his ground. And then
I think besides Lou Dort, you look and you say the Jalen Williams have heart, they have hustle, but that won't always amount to defense. Poku's skinny, Shea is skinny.
Chet is skinny.
Chet will get blocks, no question. When you're 7 foot, you just gotta go like this. But that's not really defense. People can just sauce him in a. We've seen it happen to Rudy Gobert for so many years. It'll happen to Chet Holmgren unless he improves his footwork.
Well, Rudy Gobert is a 2-time D-point winner, so I don't really think we should be slandering his name right now, should we?
He gets kicked off the floor.
Yeah, okay.
Alright, I think next, New Orleans. You got Zion, Ingram, Herb, Trey Murphy.
See, to me, it feels like Zion has been in the league for so long because everybody's been talking about him like he's a legend.
Yeah.
Because, he averaged 26, 27 in his first season, but, it's just crazy how he's only below 23.
We have all these All-NBA, top 20 all-time talks about Zion. He's played, 60 total games. But this is going to be his first real season.
Yeah, it's still impressive.
It's
still very impressive.
Oh my gosh, those points on that efficiency is amazing. If he just gets a speck of defense, he'll be good. And they're another team with all positions filled out with Jackson Hayes too.
Jackson Hayes. Well, he might not be.
If Jackson Hayes gets out of prison.
Well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm not sure how old is Devontae Graham.
Devontae Graham's young in NBA years, but he's pretty old. Same with Jose Alvarado. He's 24, but a rookie.
Right.
I don't know if you want to count that as young.
But Brandon Ingram's still pretty young. He's not someone that you would say is part of a young core because of just the experience that he's had on the 2 different teams now.
He's technically a veteran.
He's technically a veteran, but numbers wise, he's still young who can give a lot to his team for a long time.
And they just drafted Dyson Daniels. It was basically the Lonzo replacement. You could trade away Devontae Graham. You can have someone like Dyson Daniels because even though his jump shot's not that good, not quite there yet, it shows it looks good and he can play defense and he can pass the ball. So I trust that core more than anyone just based on how they got against the Suns. What'd they take them to? 7?
7, 6.
7?
I'm not sure.
If you're taking the team that went to the championship the year before to 7 without your star player, and you just traded for your point guard 20 games ago, you have a bright future. You're a top 5 game core.
Yeah, and then I also want to talk about Houston for a second because Houston has a great young core. They've also drafted some really good players this year. So obviously they have Jabari Parker now. And
Tari Eason.
I was just going to say Tari Eason. He was a steal. And, when he was in the Summer League, he was an amazing defender. Very, very, very versatile. And I haven't really seen his offensive side. I have no clue if he's good or not. But
He's kind of a lob threat, but then during summer league, like that's what he's known for, being that high energy guy. He was taking 3-pointers, and you love to see that because Şengün and him are like polar opposites. Şengün's a passer, really not much of a defender, but his talent, he's almost Jokic. Like he's like Isaiah Hardenstein. He's a passing big, so it's like you could play him and Tari at the same time. So you could have a Şengün, Tari, Jabari, Jalen, KPJ, all at the same time.
which, for a lineup where they're all under 25, except for maybe KPJ,
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing because obviously they had like the worst record in the league last year, but you can't deny that they have a great young core because of like their ability, like the front office's ability to draft. Like obviously Jalen Green, I know a lot of people thought that he was in contest for Rookie of the Year because he was having a great start to the season, and he did even out that way, but he just didn't stand out like the other rookies did, like Evan Mobley and Scotty Barnes did. But he was still up there, and I think that he can still prove, like he's a potential like most
20.
improved player.
25-point scorer. I see that. If the thing with the Rockets is they don't really have direction, like they don't play for anything, so everyone's just scoring. If Jalen started passing, that would add more. Like if KPJ started passing, like he can pass, but he just doesn't. We've seen him pass before. We've seen him play point guard, but he just doesn't, and that's why they're gonna struggle because they're young players. They're selfish. They don't have that much mentorship. They have Eric Gordon, but Eric Gordon's kind of selfish. So.
And they could be, because of like the way that they're headed. I'm pretty sure everybody knows where they're headed because I don't think anybody has faith in them. But they could be a team that could potentially tank for Victor Wembanyama too.
Victor Wembanyama is gonna be a major point. I think that will be a big story for this season because you see like the bottom 3 teams on each side. If halfway through the season they feel it, they're gonna trade everybody. Like the Jazz are gonna be one of those teams. Donovan Mitchell might be gone. Mike Conley, Bogdanovich, Clarkson, Victor Wembanyama is gonna be a big part. And Houston, they might even rest their young guys for a while. They might rest Eric Gordon. OKC was resting players for the last 2 years. They could do it again, or they could just trade up with all those picks that they had, those young assets. I feel like the NBA is in such a good place right now because we have people going to win championships. We have super teams, and then we have those people that are going to be super teams.
So with that being said, who do you think would be the best team in the league in 5 years?
In 5 years.
Let's assume that in 5 years, Chris Paul, Steph Curry, LeBron James are all retired.
Yeah.
Let's assume that they lost those superstars, even though Steph Curry probably won't be retired in 5 years. But, let's assume.
I'm looking at the East, and 3 teams immediately jump out at me. First off is the Hornets, because LaMelo, I feel like he can be a generational talent. Him by himself can make those Hornets good, and people will want to come and play with LaMelo because he's unselfish. He's a good superstar.
I don't think any jail time is less than 5 years, though, so I don't think,
if Miles gets out
Bridges.
in 5 years, we could come move. PJ Washington, he could be around for a while.
He could be around for a while, but he probably won't do anything to show it.
And then Detroit, just because they're such a young team, and if they come out as being good, no one would want to leave a good team. They'll all get their bags from Detroit because Detroit won't want to let anyone go. And then, honestly, I think Boston.
You think Boston?
If Jason Tatum.
Jason Tatum is still very young. But
only 21.
I think that if they can keep their players, I just think it's still going to be Cleveland in 5 years.
That's true.
Cleveland or Boston. I think it's more going to be Boston, but I think Cleveland is definitely up there. Those 2 teams are definitely going to be 2 teams that are going to be competing for the number 1 seed in the next 5 years after a lot of players retire. I think Chicago can be up there too, just because of the way, just
because they're Chicago.
Just because they're Chicago? No, come on.
I don't know. I was thinking in my head, what about Milwaukee? Like how old would Giannis be? 31?
32.
32? the prime years of an NBA player is
That's
what,
true.
30 to
So
33.
yeah, like
People would still
Cleveland-
want to play with Giannis.
Cleveland, Milwaukee, and yeah, Boston, probably top 3 at least.
Yeah.
And then that's for the East. For the West, it's kind of tough because you can't really say anything about OKC because of how young they
Yeah.
are. The Clippers have amazing players, but they're all old.
Yeah.
Phoenix, I don't know if Devin Booker's gonna stay there after Chris Paul retires.
Actually, I feel like showing back to OKC, because of every pick that they have,
There's no way that they're not good.
there's no way that they're not
Because they
good.
can trade those away. and
Because
stuff.
they could trade those nine. We saw Rudy Gobert get traded for 5. If they trade 9, because they have what, like 20, 18, something in
I
that
think
range.
so, yeah.
If they just trade 9, they could get whatever the superstar player is at that time.
Like KD.
Like maybe a KD, but like maybe a Jason Tatum at that time. Maybe he hasn't won it with the Celtics yet, and maybe OKC's like, okay, we have Chet, we have Lou Dort, we have Shea. Come play with us. We'll throw you 9 picks. We'll throw you the Williamses. We'll throw you whoever we drafted the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that being a real possibility.
I definitely can. And, for the worst team in 5 years, that's a lot tougher. Because I honestly think that the Lakers are up there for the West.
I think Minnesota,
Minnesota, you think?
because this is what I'm picturing. Karl Anthony Towns will be, I don't know, he'll be older and not as good. Anthony Edwards will be more fed up and probably leave. Gobert will be old, they'll be stuck with his contract. They trade away all their picks, they won't have anyone to draft.
I can definitely see that as a possibility, but I just feel like with how young they still are right now, I feel like they still have a lot of potential for the next few years. But
I mean, it's so hard to look forward into the future to say who's best and who's worst. So really, it doesn't mean anything. It's just our assumptions. How can we gauge that far ahead? You know.
yeah. And with that said, that concludes our second episode of The Rebound. And thank you for watching.